Welcome home to St. Anne's, a place of community, love, and faith. No matter who you are or where you are in your spiritual journey, there's a place for you at Christ's table. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. or anytime online. We look forward to seeing you.
Throwing that out there. Yeah. The whole church seems to be in the news. No. I don't know where you all are today. And it's the cleanest Sunday of the year because last week all the dogs were here. So, the carpets are never this clean. Usually, there's Cheez-Its or Goldfish or Cheerios or something. But Pet Blessing Sunday, this place gets cleaned up. No, I don't know where you all are. Everybody's traveling. They're all going to do fun things. So we should be jealous of everybody online because they're probably somewhere with better weather. But that's okay. Theme of the day is leprosy. Fun theme. So let's talk a little bit about leprosy. So leprosy is a curable disease now. Did you know that you can get it from petting armadillos? Now, and you guys know me. I believe that any animal wants to be petted by me and probably wants to come into my home as a pet. So let me tell you how brokenhearted I was the day that I discovered I probably shouldn't pet an armadillo in the wild because they can carry leprosy. There's your sermon of the day. That's all you need to know from here on out. If you see an armadillo just wandering around, wash your hands after you pet it. Okay, so leprosy, it's a bacterial infection, and now it is very curable, but throughout history, it was not. And it was a terrifying disease. So that's why we hear it so much in the Bible, is because throughout history, it was a terrifying disease. It's highly contagious. It leads to skin lesions, nerve damage, deformity. So people were obviously terrified of this disease, right? Absolutely terrified. So that's why we hear so much about it. And so both of our stories today tell about the fear of leprosy. That's why lepers were not allowed to be near anybody. Hawaii originally, for a long time, was a leper colony because it's such a dangerous thing at that time that people with leprosy were removed from society. And so in the Bible times, they weren't allowed to be near anybody. And so that's why they're not approaching Jesus. They yell at him from afar. That's not a bad thing. That's not a disrespectful thing. It's more of an acknowledgement of the disease that they carry and the safety that they are trying to offer to Jesus. So that's not a bad thing. But again, highly contagious, and it meant removal from society. So that's a big deal in our story from Naaman. It's a big deal that if this disease comes to you, you are going to be. So you have a powerful person, an important person, who this disease is going to remove him from society. So do you understand why this is such a big deal and why it becomes such a thing? That actually has no bearing on my sermon whatsoever. But I always think it's important because sometimes what can happen in our culture is because we are so far removed, both in history and culture, from what's going on in the Bible, that sometimes we forget that and we just pull things out of the Bible, and they don't necessarily line up quite the same in our culture and our society. And so it's really, really important that when we are going into Scripture, that we do that with a full understanding of culture and language and time and all those things, all right? We can't just pull stuff out and be like, well, here we go. It's all in context, and that's important. And so sometimes also, I'm a history person. I have history degrees. I just think it's interesting. And who doesn't want to know that you shouldn't pet an armadillo? See? Don't come into church and be like, I didn't get anything out of church today, because I've always got something for you. Armadillos. Okay, But what's really, really important in these stories is what happens after the stories. And that's what I want us to think about. Because there's not a person here, there's not a person who took time out of their Sunday morning for no reason. You all have something else that you could be doing, right? And I get that. And I think that's important for us to acknowledge because there's a reason that you're here. There's a reason that the one person with leprosy comes back to Jesus and celebrates, right? Acknowledges what Jesus has done. There's a reason that Naaman has this moment of reflection of being like, oh my gosh, what just happened here? But the question for all of us is, what do you do next? What do all of us do next? Because we all have stories of God intervening in our world and in our own personal life, right? It's why you're willing to be here. Because we're all trying to figure out, what do we do next? How do we live in a world and in a life that is touched constantly by the divine? We acknowledge it, right? And the reality is every single human, every creature is a creature of God, right? We know that. It's obvious. It's obvious in Scripture. It's obvious in history. It's obvious that all humans are divine creatures. Okay, some it's less obvious than others. I get that. We all struggle with that. But the reality is, all of us are touched by God all the time. But sometimes we don't acknowledge that, do we? So we know that. And so all of us, you, me, everybody, we're trying to figure out, what do we do now? Because we know that we've been touched by the divine. We know that we carry the divine within us. We know that every person we interact with also carries the divine within them. How do we live now? Because Jesus heals all people, every single human. When God says all, when Jesus says all, Jesus means all. I know sometimes we like to parse out that all and be like, well, maybe not like all. You ever do that? You're like, like all of them, right? And we start to put rules and categories and all sorts of stuff on it. But really, Jesus is all. So now what? Now what do all those 10 people with leprosy, whose lives have been changed in such an enormous way, not just their physical illness, because that's been changed, but also their place in society has been changed. They're able to come back. The reason they're going to the priest is not just to show that they've been healed, but it's also because that's the way of coming back into community and society, right? You have to go to the temple and show that you are pure and that you are clean and you can come back into the community. So everybody's life has been changed, but don't you want to know what they do next? Don't you? I do. I look at this story and I'm like, well, what now? What now? Because they all are going to do something, right? Are they going to go back to work? Are they going to go back to their families? Are they going to follow Jesus and spread the gospel? And they're not going to go hang out and live in a leper colony anymore. They're not going to do that. We know that. What now? I don't have a message or an answer for that. But just like I don't have a message or an answer for what you and I do. Right? I don't. A sermon is really just the beginning of a conversation. I mean, it feels like a one-way conversation, doesn't it? You're like, I really have a few things to say. That's okay, you can say them. But really, it's the beginning of us starting to think and wonder and explore. And that's what I want us to do today. I want us to think and wonder, explore. Because what did these folks do next? And what are we going to do next? Not pet an armadillo. Unless you know it's an appropriate armadillo. And I assume we can wash our hands, right? It's a bacterial infection. We could wash our hands after petting an armadillo. Be fine. Says the person who really wants to pet a raccoon, too. I mean, we all know I am full of bad decisions.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.